vanity metrics versus actionable metrics. Could you talk a little bit more about that, and what do you mean by vanity metrics, and what's really important in your mind to be measuring?
Yeah, so for those that are new to the term vanity metrics, those are the numbers you put in your press release to make your competitors feel bad about themselves. Okay, that's a very important part of entrepreneurship. Don't get me wrong. I once, at a company I worked at, we had a competitor that used to report regularly in the press on the gross domestic product equivalent of all the user-to-user transactions in their system. Which, if you know anything about macroeconomics, this does not make any sense. This gross domestic product, a very specific measure of national productivity, doesn't mean, like, makes no sense in the case of this virtual worlds company. And it would always be like $25 billion GDP. 15th largest country in the world if it was a country, which it isn't. You can imagine I'm in these board meetings. My board, my CEO turned to me and they'd always be like, "What's our GDP? Is it as big as theirs?" And I'd be like, "Listen, that doesn't make any sense. GDP, I explain, it doesn't make sense." And they'd be like, "Yeah, that's true, but what is ours anyway?" Right? It makes you feel like it probably isn't as big as those. We're not the 15th largest, and you feel bad. So that's, vanity is a very important competitive weapon to bludgeon your competitors with, but it has some downsides. The downsides come when you start to believe it yourself, and start to use those numbers yourself to make predictions about what's going to happen. So imagine, and the reason we're willing to give vanity metrics to the press is we know they contain no information whatsoever. That's the whole point. So imagine I report, if you read any of the tech press these days, you only have to go like one day before you will see a story about a new product that has had 100 million messages sent on their platform, right? And that sounds like a lot. You're like, wow, that's impressive. When you think about that, just think about it for a second. Do we know which of these two scenarios it is? Could it be 100 million people tried this product one time and churned out? Or could it be one person who likes this product a lot? Like, maybe an unreasonable amount? It could be either, or any scenario in between. So what did we actually learn about this company other than they've got a counter that can count up to 100 million? Nothing. Now here's what happens when we use vanity metrics ourselves. This is where it gets dangerous. There's a flaw, a bug, if you will, in human psychology. I meet with teams all the time, and I ask them, how do you know you're making progress? It's one of my favorite questions. And the answer, everyone thinks it's an easy question to answer, and if I'm talking to the engineering team, they'll tell me as follows. Well, last month, we launched these new features, and this month, all of our metrics are up and to the right. Everything's going up. So up and to the right means we're making progress, QED. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I have an alternate theory. My alternate theory is that last month, Mercury was in retrograde. And I'm an astrologer. I believe that when Mercury is in retrograde, all the numbers go up. That's just what happens. And they're like, you're crazy. That's completely insane. That doesn't make any sense. But now my question is, which of us is really insane? Do either of us actually know what caused the numbers to go up? I don't think so, but I'm just visiting. You live here, so you sure you want to use astrology? And they get very upset at me. Well, I'm not a very good consultant. Now here's what happens. If I walk down the hall to marketing, and I say, hey, marketing, how do you guys know you're making progress? Guess what they're going to say? Well, we did this amazing new marketing campaign last month. And this month, all the numbers are up and to the right. So therefore, QED, we're making progress. And if I talk to ops or QA, I was once talking to a customer service guys, and we adopted this new customer service policy. And this month, we're making a lot more money. Therefore, we're doing a great job. So everyone gets to believe that what they did made the numbers go up. But now what happens if the numbers go down? Is it the same? And something very odd happens. It's all of a sudden seasonal effects. You ever heard that one? Seasonal effects made the numbers go down. Seasonal effects never make the numbers go up. I don't know why. They never make the numbers go down. The seasons are always out together. Or more likely, if people are being honest, they're like, well, we launched these great new features in engineering last week. Those idiots in marketing ruined it. You ever heard that before? So with vanity metrics, we all get to live in our own private reality, where the stuff we do always works and makes customers happy. But the stuff those idiots down the hall do is always ruining it. And can you imagine, you run that iterated prisoner's dilemma a few times, pretty soon you have departments that have completely different views of reality. So what makes it hard to run a company is not deciding what the pivot should be when it's time. The problem is that we can't agree on the facts about whether what we're doing is working or not, because depending on the vagaries of the vanity metrics as they bounce around, at any given time, if I interview people in your company, I get them in separate rooms and just ask them the question, how's it going? Is the strategy working or not? I'll get really different answers. And if we can't agree on what the facts are, how are we going to figure out, when it's time to pivot and all that kind of stuff? So, antidote to that is to use metrics that have predictive power, that have a little bit more scientific validity, which we can talk about more if people are interested, but I promised it would be really boring. It gets into accounting pretty fast. You know how people feel about accounting, so be careful.
How many accountants in the room? Okay.
Listen, I think accountants are a very important part of the solution, so I'm happy to talk about it, no problem.
So